Before banks and stock exchanges existed, one civilization had already understood the tool that would shape the world. If you control gold, you control power. In the ancient Near East, gold was not just an ornament, it was the ultimate power, indestructible, rare, and pursued by everyone. Kingdoms fought for it, rulers built empires with it, diplomacy revolved around it. And for centuries, there was one civilization that played this game differently. Egypt did not just use gold, it produced it. While other civilizations struggled to obtain gold, Egyptian pharaohs ensured a constant flow of it from deep within the deserts. This flow quietly but steadily laid the foundations of Egyptian power. Because in that world, controlling gold meant controlling all economic power. To understand how Egypt built this power, all you need to do is look at the map. The Nile Valley was fertile but poor in gold. The real wealth lay beyond its borders. To the south, Nubia; to the east, the brutal eastern desert. In these regions, gold veins were hidden within the rocks, and the Egyptians discovered this treasure early on. In fact, the word Nub, meaning gold, may have given Nubia its name. But finding gold was the easy part. The real challenge was extracting it. These mines were far from livable areas. There was no water, no shade. Temperatures were extremely high. Yet Egypt did not give up. Because this was not an adventure, it was a state-level power operation. Expeditions were planned, workers were gathered, soldiers accompanied them, supplies were transported, wells were found. And in the middle of the desert, temporary cities emerged, filled with workers whose only purpose was to extract gold. This was not an individual pursuit. It was an organized economic machine. The cost of this system was heavy. There were skilled miners, but most were brought by force: villagers, conscripted laborers, captives. For them, this was not an opportunity. It was a place of punishment. They broke stones, ground them, washed them, for days, months, years. Even centuries later, historians describe these mines with both admiration and horror, because this operation pushed the limits of human endurance. But it worked, and what it produced was not just gold, it was power. In Egypt, gold was not money in the way we think of it today. There were no coins. The economy was based on weight. Gold was not something spent, it was something stored as power. The pharaoh stored it, decided who received it, and controlled the economy through it. At the core of the system was a single truth: whoever controls gold controls the system. This control gave Egypt not just wealth, but influence. The Amarna letters make this clear. Kings of the Near East constantly requested gold from Egypt. One Babylonian king even said, "In Egypt, gold is as plentiful as dust." Whether true or not, perception is what mattered. Egypt was seen as the region's gold reserve, and that perception achieved what armies could not. It built alliances, it bought loyalty, it reinforced power. Gold was the way to win without war. But this system was not only economic, gold was also sacred. To the Egyptians, the flesh of the gods was made of gold. Temples were adorned with it. So when the pharaoh controlled gold, he controlled not only wealth, but divine power as well. But every powerful system has a weakness. The name of this system was control. Control over land, control over labor, control over the mines. When one of these broke, everything collapsed. When Egypt weakened, it lost Nubia. Caravan routes were cut, the flow of gold slowed, and suddenly, diplomacy weakened, projects stopped, the army lost strength. In other words, gold was both the source of power and its greatest vulnerability. This is not just Egypt's story, because this story is not only about gold, it is about human nature, ambition, and the ability to build systems. In the ancient world, no power could survive on a single pillar alone. True strength emerged from a fragile balance between production, control, and continuity. Egypt managed to build that balance, but in doing so, it unknowingly tied itself to a single source. In the short term, this created a nearly perfect system. In the long term, it created vulnerability. Because the more centralized a system becomes, the more sensitive it is to disruption. The flow of gold did not just sustain the economy, it shaped the entire structure of society. Workers labored, soldiers protected, administrators organized, and the pharaoh stood above it all, controlling the rhythm of the system. Every shipment, every expedition, every decision reinforced a single reality. Power was not scattered, it was concentrated. And concentration creates both strength and risk. Over time, this dependency became invisible. It felt natural, inevitable, permanent. But history has a pattern. What feels permanent is often the most fragile. When pressure builds from external threats, internal instability, or shifting trade routes, the strongest looking systems can fracture the fastest. Egypt's reliance on gold was not a flaw at the beginning, it was a strategy. But every strategy, if left unchanged, eventually becomes a weakness. This is the paradox of power. The very thing that elevates a civilization can also limit its ability to adapt. And when adaptation slows, decline begins long before collapse is visible. It is a recurring rule of history. When a society ties its power to a single resource, that resource becomes both an advantage and a dependency. If control exists, then there is power. If control is lost, then the system collapses. Centuries later, gold's role was replaced by oil. Today it is rare elements, chips, strategic metals. The details change, but the rule does not. Economic power begins with controlling what is scarce. Egypt's true achievement was not possessing gold. It was turning it into a system of power. The mines produced, the state organized, the treasury distributed, and the pharaoh controlled the entire flow. This was a strategy built long before modern financial systems. Gold gave Egypt wealth, but more importantly, it gave influence, it gave authority, it gave power. And it reminds us of a deeper truth. Wealth is not just about owning, it is about dominating, controlling the source, controlling the distribution, controlling authority. Egypt did not build stock exchanges, it did not build banks, but it understood a truth that still applies today. If you control what everyone needs, you are not just rich, you are powerful. And for 1,000 years, the gold flowing from the deserts south of the Nile gave Egypt that power. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. All the answers are hidden in history.